Dr. Hanil Kim wiped the sweat from his face as he walked across the red dirt of Kepler 442c. The twin suns burned hot above him, making the air shimmer like water. He had been working at the Meridian mining facility for 3 years now, studying the strange plants and animals on this distant world. It was lonely work, but someone had to do it. The mining facility sat like a metal island in the middle of nowhere. 50 humans lived and worked there, digging valuable metals from the ground and sending them back to Earth. Hanil's job was different. He looked for life forms that might be dangerous or useful. Most days, he found nothing but bugs and small creatures that ran away when they saw him. Today felt different. He was checking the Eastern Valley when he heard strange sounds. Not the usual wind or machine noise from the facility. These were softer sounds like crying. Hanil stopped walking and listened carefully. The sounds came from behind some large rocks ahead of him. Hanil moved slowly toward the rocks. He kept his hand near his weapon, but something told him he would not need it. As he got closer, the crying sounds got louder. They sounded almost like human babies, but not quite right. When he looked around the rocks, Hanul's breath caught in his throat. 3 small creatures huddled together in the shadow of the largest rock. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Each one was about the size of a human child, but they had tough, dark skin that looked like armor. Their heads were larger than human heads, with big yellow eyes that seemed too old for their small bodies. Sharp claws grew from their fingers, and small spikes ran along their backs. But what shocked Hanul most was how helpless they looked. The 3 little creatures pressed against each other, making soft crying sounds. They were clearly hungry and scared. One of them, the smallest, had cuts on its arm that looked infected. Hanil knew what these creatures were. Every human in the galaxy knew about the Vorthak. They were the most feared predators in known space. Adult Vorthak stood 12 feet tall and could tear through steel with their bare hands. They traveled in war fleets, destroying entire planets and eating everything they found. No one had ever seen a Vorthak show mercy or kindness. But these were just babies. Hanil looked around for adult Vorthak. The area was empty except for some strange tracks in the dirt. The tracks led away from the rocks and disappeared in the distance. Someone had left these babies here alone. The smallest creature looked up at Hanil with its big yellow eyes. It made a soft sound, almost like a human baby asking for help. Hanil felt his heart break a little. Whatever these creatures might become when they grew up, right now they were just scared children who needed help. He activated his communication device. "Taehyung, this is Hanul. I need you to come to Sector 7 East right away and bring the medical kit." Taehyung Park's voice crackled through the speaker. "What did you find out there, Doc? Another poisonous plant?" "Just come quickly." And Taehyung, "Bring Soo-young too. We're going to need to discuss this." 20 minutes. Later, Taehyung and Soo-young Lee arrived in their ground vehicle. Taehyung was the facility commander, a tough man who had seen many dangerous things in space. Soo-young was their communications officer, smart and careful about everything. Both of them stopped walking when they saw the 3 creatures. "Holy stars," Taehyung whispered. "Those are Vorthak cubs." Soo-young grabbed Taehyung's arm. "We need to leave now. Where there are cubs, there are adults. They'll kill us all if they find us here." Hanul shook his head. "Look at the tracks. An adult was here, but it's gone now. These babies have been alone for hours, maybe days. They're starving." "Hanul, listen to me," Taehyung said firmly. "These things will grow up to be monsters. Vorthak don't feel love or kindness. They only know how to kill and eat. If we take them back to the facility, we're bringing death home with us." The smallest cub made another soft crying sound. Its yellow eyes looked at Hanul with what seemed like hope. Hanul knelt down slowly, keeping his movements gentle. The cub did not run away. Instead, it crawled a little closer to him. "Look at them," Hanul said softly. "They're just children, scared, hungry children. What kind of people would we be if we left them here to die?" Suyong checked her scanner. "I'm not picking up any adult Vorthak in this area. But Hanul, even if we wanted to help them, what would we feed them? Vorthak are carnivores. They eat meat, probably live meat." Hanul thought about this. "We have protein supplies. We can try different foods and see what they can eat. Every living thing needs care when it's young, even predators." Taehyung looked at the three cubs, then at Hanul. "You're not thinking clearly, Doc. This is the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Their own parent probably left them here because our facility looked like an easy target. When they grow up, they'll remember this place and come back to hunt us all." "Maybe," Hanul said. "Or maybe they'll remember that we saved them when they needed help. Maybe they'll learn that not everyone is an enemy." He reached out his hand toward the smallest cub. The creature looked at his hand for a long moment, then slowly touched it with one tiny claw. The touch was gentle, almost curious. "They're already different from adult Vorthak," Hanul said. "Adults would have attacked us by now. These ones are trying to communicate." Suyang sighed. "The Galaxy Council will never believe this. If they find out we're harboring Vorthak, they'll send a military force to destroy our entire facility." "Then we won't tell them," Hanul said simply. "We'll raise these three and see what happens. If they become dangerous, we'll deal with that when the time comes. But I won't leave children to die, no matter what species they are." Taehyung was quiet for a long time. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Against my better judgment, we'll try this. But the moment they show any sign of aggression toward our people, this experiment ends. Understood?" Hanul smiled and carefully picked up the smallest cub. It felt warm and surprisingly light. The other two cubs followed, staying close to their sibling. As they walked back to the facility, Hanul thought about names for the three creatures. The largest one, who seemed to watch everything carefully, he would call Do-hyun. The middle one, who had already started examining Taehyung's equipment with curious eyes, would be Min-jae. The smallest, the one who had reached out to touch his hand, was clearly female. He would call her Nari. None of them knew that far away in space, the cub's mother Krexith was dying from her wounds. In her final moments, she thought about the soft-skinned humans who would soon discover her offspring. She had chosen their location carefully, near the human settlement, but far enough away that her cubs would grow strong before making contact. Soon, she thought with satisfaction, her children would claim that territory and feast on human flesh. It was the perfect revenge for her failed raid and her coming death. Krexith died, believing her cubs would become the doom of the humans who found them. She could never have imagined how wrong she was. 5 years had passed since Hanul found the three cubs. The Meridian mining facility had changed in ways no one could have expected. Where once there had been only the sounds of machines and human voices, now there were also deeper sounds. The voices of 3 young Vorthak who had learned to speak like humans. Do-hyun stood 7 feet tall now, his dark armor-like skin gleaming in the facility's lights. His yellow eyes were still large, but they no longer looked helpless. Instead, they showed intelligence, and something that should have been impossible in a Vorthak: kindness. When he walked through the facility corridors, he was careful to duck under low doorways and move slowly so he would not frighten the human workers. "Good morning, Uncle Taehyung," Do-hyun said as he entered the command center. His voice was deep but gentle. The facility commander looked up from his reports and smiled. It had taken him 3 years to get used to being called uncle by a creature that could tear him apart with its bare hands. "Morning, Do-hyun. Your father wants to see you in the lab after breakfast. Something about testing your new equipment." Do-hyun nodded and headed toward the cafeteria. Along the way, he met Min-jae, who was smaller than his brother but moved with quick, precise steps. Minji carried a tablet computer that he had modified with Vorthak technology. His claws, which should have been weapons, had learned to type faster than most humans. "Brother, look at this," Minjae said excitedly, showing Do-hyun the tablet screen. "I've been working with Ji-won to improve the mining equipment. If we combine human computer systems with our natural ability to sense metal in the ground, we can increase efficiency by 40%. Ji-won Choi, the facility's chief engineer, walked up behind them. "Your brother is a genius, Do-hyun. He understands technology in ways I never imagined possible. Yesterday, he fixed a machine that I thought was beyond repair." Do-hyun felt proud of his brother, but also worried. "Minjae, remember what Appa taught us. We use our abilities to help, not to show off. Some of the workers still fear us." It was true. While most of the facility staff had learned to accept the three Vorthak, a few still watched them with nervous eyes. It was hard to forget that these gentle creatures belonged to the most feared species in the galaxy. The three brothers and sister found Nari in the cafeteria, helping Yoonji Han prepare breakfast for the facility workers. Nari was the smallest of the three, but she had grown into the most empathetic. Her yellow eyes could somehow see when humans were sad or worried, and she always tried to help. "Good morning, brothers," Nari said, her voice softer than the others. "Aunt Yoonji is teaching me to make the soup that humans like. She says cooking is another way to take care of family." Yoonji smiled as she watched Nari carefully measure ingredients with her claws. "Your sister has gentle hands, despite how dangerous they look. She's going to be a wonderful healer someday." As they ate breakfast together, the three Vorthak talked in their mixture of human language and their own natural sounds. They had learned to speak like humans, but they still used some Vorthak communications when they wanted privacy. The facility staff had grown used to the strange clicking and humming sounds. After breakfast, Hanul called the three to his laboratory. He was older now, with gray in his hair, but his eyes still held the same kindness that had made him save three abandoned cubs years ago. The cubs, now young adults, still called him Appa, father in Korean. "Today we're going to practice something important," Hanul said. "Kyung-ho is going to teach you advanced combat techniques. But remember why we learn these skills." Kyung-ho. Nam, the facility security chief, had been the most reluctant to train the Vorthak. But over the years, he had come to understand that their strength could be used for protection rather than destruction. "Fighting is not about winning," Kyung-ho said as he led them to the training area. "It's about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Your bodies are naturally built for combat, but your minds must learn when to fight and when to show mercy." Do-hyun, Minjae, and Nari listened carefully. They had inherited the physical abilities of their species, incredible strength, speed, and natural weapons. But they had also learned human values. They knew that true strength came from choosing when not to use violence. The training session was impressive to watch. The three Vorthak moved with fluid grace, their movements coordinated, in ways that seemed almost telepathic. But what made them truly remarkable was their restraint. When practicing with each other, they were careful never to cause real harm. When practicing with human opponents using safety equipment, they held back their full strength. "You three fight like a pack," Kyung-ho observed, "but not like a hunting pack. You fight like protectors watching each other's backs." This was exactly what made them different from other Vorthak. Normal members of their species were solitary hunters who competed with each other for prey. Do-hyun, Minjae, and Nari had learned to work together, to sacrifice their own advantages to help their siblings succeed. During lunch break, Soo-young Lee joined them with news from the communications center. "I've been monitoring galactic news feeds," she said quietly. "The Vorthak supremacy destroyed another star system last week. 3 billion people dead." The three siblings became very quiet. They knew about their birth species' reputation, but hearing specific numbers always hurt. Somewhere out in the galaxy, creatures that looked exactly like them were causing unimaginable suffering. We are not them, Nari said softly. We choose a different path. But we could help stop them, Do-hyun said. Someday, when we're stronger, maybe we can make a difference. Hanul put his hand on Do-hyun's massive shoulder. Maybe you will, but for now, focus on becoming the best versions of yourselves. Change starts small with individual choices. That afternoon, the siblings worked on their assigned tasks around the facility. Do-hyun helped with security patrols, his keen senses able to detect problems long before human equipment could. Min-jae worked in the engineering section, his quick mind solving technical problems that had puzzled human engineers for months. Nari assisted in the medical bay, her gentle touch somehow able to calm patients who were in pain. The other facility workers had gradually learned to see them not as monsters but as family members. Won-ho Yu, a new engineer who had arrived 2 years ago, often said that working alongside the three Vorthak had changed his entire understanding of what it meant to be human. They're more human than some humans I've known, Won-ho told Hanul one evening. They care about others more than themselves. They work without complaining. They protect everyone around them. If this is what Vorthak could be like, the galaxy would be a very different place. As night fell over the facility, the three siblings gathered in their shared quarters. Their room was larger than human quarters, built to accommodate their size, but decorated with human artwork and family photos. On the walls hung pictures of them growing up, Hanil teaching them to read, Yoonji bandaging Nari's injured arm, Tae-hyung showing Do-hyun how to use communication equipment. Do you ever wonder what our birth parents were like? Min-jae asked as they prepared for sleep. Sometimes, Do-hyun admitted, but it doesn't matter. Our real family is here. Appa chose to save us when he could have walked away. Uncle Tae-hyung chose to trust us when he could have sent us away. Everyone here chose to love us when they could have feared us. Nari curled up between her brothers, just as she had as a small cub. I hope someday we can help other Vorthak learn what we've learned, that there's more to life than hunting and killing. Outside their window, the stars shone down on the mining facility. Somewhere among those stars, the Vorthak supremacy continued its campaign of destruction, unaware that 3 of their own kind had chosen a completely different path. The galaxy still saw Vorthak as unstoppable monsters. But on one small mining facility on a distant world, 3 young Vorthak had learned that the greatest strength was not the power to destroy, but the choice to protect and love. They had become something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. And they were just getting started. The alarm bell rang through the Meridian mining facility at dawn, shattering the peaceful morning quiet. Do-hyun was awake instantly, his Vorthak senses telling him that something was very wrong. The smell in the air was familiar, but terrifying. Oh, the scent of his own species. Brother, sister, wake up, he whispered urgently. Min-jae and Nari were already stirring, their instincts as sharp as his own. In the command center, Tae-hyung stared at the scanner readings with growing horror. 3 ships in orbit, Vorthak design. They're scanning the surface. Soo-young's hands flew over her communication controls. I'm picking up transmission signals. They're using old Vorthak tracking frequencies following some kind of trail. Hanul arrived at the command center, still putting on his jacket. The 3 siblings followed close behind him, their faces grim but determined. Through the facility's windows they could see small dots in the sky. Vorthak landing craft heading toward the surface. How long do we have? Do-hyun asked. Maybe 20 minutes before they land, Tae-hyung replied. All non-essential personnel are heading to the emergency bunkers, but we all know that won't help if they decide to level the whole facility. Kyung-ho Nam rushed in, carrying several weapons. These won't do much good against adult Vorthak, but at least we can try to fight. No, Nari said firmly. If you fight them, they will kill you all. Vorthak don't show mercy to those who resist. Minje was studying the scanner readings. The trail they're following, it's old. Very old. It leads right to where Appa found us 7 years ago. A chill ran through the room as everyone understood. The Vorthak weren't here for conquest or resources. They were here following the scent trail left by the cubs' original mother, expecting to find either dead humans or cubs who had claimed this territory as their hunting ground. They don't know about us, Do-hyun said slowly. They don't know we've been raised by humans. Hanel looked at his 3 adopted children, seeing the determination in their yellow eyes. What are you thinking? We stand between them and the facility, Do-hyun said. We make them understand that this is our territory now, and that humans are under our protection. That's suicide, Kyung-ho protested. You're strong, but you're still young. Adult Vorthak warriors will tear you apart. Maybe, Minje said calmly, but they won't expect us to fight like humans taught us. They'll expect individual combat, not teamwork. They'll expect hunting behavior, not protective behavior. Nari moved to the communication console. Aunt Soo-young, can you patch me into their ship frequencies? I want to try talking to them first. Soo-young hesitated, then nodded. The signal is open. But Nari, they might not listen. Nari spoke into the microphone, using the harsh, clicking language of her birth species. Her voice was different when she spoke Vorthak, deeper, more commanding. The response came quickly, a series of aggressive sounds that made all 3 siblings tense. What did they say? Hanul asked. The leader is called War Alpha Thexmore, Nari translated. He said they've come to collect cubs that were left here during a raid 7 years ago. He expects to find us ruling over dead humans or keeping live ones as food. Do-hyun's claws extended slightly, an involuntary response to anger. Tell him the cubs are here, but that we claim this territory under pack right. Pack right? Tae-hyung asked. It's an old Vorthak law, Minje explained. If cubs claim territory and can defend it, adult Vorthak must acknowledge their claim, but it means we have to fight for it. Nari spoke into the radio again. The response was immediate and loud, clearly angry. Then the radio went silent. They're landing now, Soo-young reported. 3 craft, about 50 meters from the main entrance. The 3 siblings moved toward the exit, but Hanul grabbed Do-hyun's arm. Wait, you don't have to do this. We can evacuate everyone. Abandon the facility. Do-hyun looked down at the human who had raised him, the man he called father. Appa, you saved us when we had nothing. You gave us family, purpose, love. Now it's our turn to protect our family. Minje checked his modified equipment one last time. Besides, we're curious to see if human tactics work against Vorthak instincts. Nari hugged Hanul tightly. Stay inside until this is over. And remember, whatever happens out there, we love you all. The 3 siblings walked out of the facility and took positions between the building and the landing craft. They stood close together, but not too close, covering each other's blind spots the way Kyung-ho had taught them. Do-hyun in the center, Minje to his left, Nari to his right. The Vorthak landing craft opened, and 6 adult warriors emerged. Each one stood 12 feet tall, their black armor-like skins scarred from many battles. Their yellow eyes glowed with predatory hunger, and their claws were already extended for combat. War Alpha. Thexmore was the largest, with tribal markings carved into his armor plating. He looked at the 3 young Vorthak and spoke in the clicking language, his voice full of disappointment and anger. He says we smell like humans, Nari translated for her brothers. He says we're corrupted and weak. Tell him we're exactly what we choose to be, Do-hyun replied. The War Alpha responded by charging directly at Do-hyun, expecting the young Vorthak to meet him in individual combat, as tradition demanded. Instead, all 3 siblings moved at once. Do-hyun dodged to the side while Min-jae and Nari attacked the War Alpha's flanks. It was a completely un-Vorthak move, coordinated, sacrificial, focused on protecting each other rather than claiming individual glory. War Alpha, Thexmore stumbled, confused by this unprecedented tactic. The other 5 warriors hesitated, unsure how to respond to combat behavior they had never seen before. The fight that followed was unlike anything in Vorthak history. The 3 siblings moved as one unit, communicating through quick human words and Vorthak sounds. When one was in danger, the other 2 immediately repositioned to help. When they had an advantage, they showed restraint rather than going for killing blows. Min-jae used his technical knowledge to turn the battle area to their advantage, leading enemies toward obstacles and using the environment as a weapon. Nari fought with precise strikes designed to disable rather than kill, something no adult Vorthak could understand. Do-hyun coordinated their movements while protecting his siblings from the heaviest attacks. But what truly shocked the adult Vorthak was what happened when Nari was knocked down by a powerful blow. Instead of using the opportunity to attack, Do-hyun and Min-jae immediately moved to protect her, giving up tactical advantages to ensure her safety. Impossible, War Alpha Thexmore hissed in their own language. Vorthak do not sacrifice advantage. For others? We do, Do-hyun replied in the same language, his voice steady despite his injuries. Because we learned something you never did. We learned what family means. The battle continued for 20 minutes, but it was clear that the 3 siblings were winning through sheer tactical superiority. The adult Vorthak were stronger individually, but they had no experience fighting against coordinated opponents who prioritized group success over individual glory. Finally, War Alpha Thexmore called for a halt. 3 of his warriors were unconscious, and the other 2 were badly injured. The 3 siblings stood ready to continue fighting, but they had not killed anyone. You fight like no Vorthak I have ever seen, Thexmore said, his voice filled with confusion and something that might have been respect. You coordinate like a hunting pack, but you fight to protect rather than to claim territory. We fight to protect our family, Nari said simply. The humans raised us. They taught us there are things more important than individual strength. Thexmore looked toward the facility, where human faces could be seen watching through windows. You choose these soft creatures over your own species? We choose love over fear, Do-hyun replied. We choose cooperation over domination. We choose to build rather than destroy. The War Alpha was quiet for a long moment, studying the 3. Young Vorthak who had just defeated his warriors using tactics that should not exist. Finally, he spoke. Your territory claim is acknowledged, but this changes nothing for the rest of the galaxy. The supremacy will continue its expansion. Your human pets will not be safe forever. Then maybe it's time for the supremacy to learn what we learned, Min-jae said, that there's more to existence than endless hunting. War Alpha Thexmore and his surviving warriors returned to their ships without another word. But as they departed, Thexmore sent one final message. The galaxy will hear of this day, Vorthak who fight like humans. It will spread fear in some and hope in others. The 3 siblings watched the ships disappear into space, then returned to the facility where their human family waited. Hanul rushed to examine their injuries while the other humans gathered around them. You did it, Taehyung said in amazement. You actually drove them off. We proved something today, Do-hyun said thoughtfully. We proved that Vorthak can choose to be different. But more than that, we proved that love and family make us stronger, not weaker. In space, War Alpha Thexmore sent his report to the Vorthak supremacy. His message was filled with confusion and concern about cubs who had been corrupted by human weakness, but had somehow become more effective warriors than traditional Vorthak. Neither the supremacy nor the 3 siblings knew that this day would be remembered as the beginning of the galaxy's greatest transformation. The test had been passed, but the real challenge was just beginning. 5 years had passed since the confrontation with War Alpha Thexmore, and the Meridian mining facility had transformed into something that defied galactic understanding. What had once been a simple human outpost was now a thriving community that blended two completely different ways of life. Do-Yun stood 10 feet tall now, his full adult size impressive even by Vorthak standards. His armor-like skin bore scars from their battle years ago, but his yellow eyes held wisdom that no traditional Vorthak possessed. He was studying a holographic display in the command center, reviewing reports that would have seemed impossible to any outside observer. 12 more cubs found this month, he said to Minjae, who was working at a modified computer station. That brings our total to 37 rescued Vorthak children. Minjae looked up from his work, his own scars visible, but his expression bright with intelligence. The pattern is becoming clear, brother. Adult Vorthak abandon their cubs near what they consider easy prey. They expect the cubs to either die or grow strong by hunting the local population. Instead, they find families, Nari added, entering the room with Wanho Yu, the human engineer who had become one of their closest friends. She carried a small Vorthak cub in her arms, barely a few months old. This little one was left near the water processing plant, completely alone for 3 days. Wanho shook his head in amazement. I still can't understand how any parent could abandon their children like that. But then again, I'm seeing what happens when Vorthak are raised with love instead of violence. The community that had grown around the original mining facility was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human buildings stood next to structures designed for much larger Vorthak bodies. Children of both species played together in carefully designed spaces. Adult Vorthak worked alongside humans on projects that benefited everyone, but most remarkable were the technological advances that came from combining human creativity with Vorthak natural abilities. Minjae had developed biomechanical interfaces that allowed Vorthak to enhance their already impressive physical capabilities with human-designed technology. Vorthak could now communicate across vast distances, coordinate complex activities, and share knowledge in ways their species had never imagined. Show him the new communication system, Wanho said excitedly to Minjae. Minjae activated a device that looked like a mixture of human electronics and Vorthak biology. Immediately, voices filled the room, other rescued Vorthak from settlements across their region of space, all reporting in. Settlement 7 here. All families safe. We helped 3 human trading ships repair their engines this week. Settlement 12 reporting. Our Vorthak teams found a rich mineral deposit. The human miners are very happy. Settlement 4 here. We made contact with a group of scared humans whose ship was damaged. They thought we would eat them. It took 2 days to convince them we wanted to help. Do-Yun smiled as he listened to the reports. 18 settlements now. Over 200 rescued Vorthak, all raised with human values, and every settlement protects humans instead of hunting them. The success had not gone unnoticed. Human trading, ships had begun to spread stories about Vorthak who helped instead of harmed. Some humans still refused to believe such stories, but others had started seeking out these unusual communities when they needed help in dangerous regions of space. Even more surprising were the occasional reports of adult Vorthak who had encountered these communities and chosen to stay. These were usually young warriors who were tired of constant fighting and drawn to the idea of living peacefully. We received another message from the Galactic Council, Hanul said as he joined them. The human scientist was older now, his hair completely gray, but his eyes still held the same kindness that had led him to save 3 cubs years ago. They want to send observers to study our unusual cooperation with hostile aliens. Do we let them come? Nari asked. Not yet, Do-Hyun decided. We're still learning and growing. Official attention might disrupt what we're building here. It was a wise decision. The community was indeed still evolving, discovering new ways for 2 very different species to live together. Human medicine combined with Vorthak natural healing abilities had created treatments that worked better than either could achieve alone. Human agriculture, enhanced by Vorthak ability to sense mineral content in soil, had produced food crops that fed both species more efficiently than ever before. But perhaps most important was the cultural exchange. Young Vorthak learned human concepts, like art, music, and storytelling. In return, they taught humans about the deep connection to nature that their species possessed, and ways of thinking that were completely different from human logic. The most beautiful thing, Yunji Han told Hanul one evening, as they watched young Vorthak and human children playing together, is seeing how they solve problems. The human children think through puzzles step by step. The Vorthak children sense solutions instinctively. But when they work together, they find answers neither group could reach alone. The older Vorthak in their community had developed something that should have been impossible for their species: the ability to consider long-term consequences beyond immediate survival needs. They made plans for the future, created things that would benefit the next generation, and showed concern for the welfare of beings who were not related to them. Kyung-ho Nam, now the community's overall security coordinator, often marveled at the changes. I used to think strength meant being able to defeat any enemy. These Vorthak taught me that real strength is choosing not to fight when you could easily win. The community had established schools where human and Vorthak children learned together. Young Vorthak learned to read human languages and understand human technology. Human children learned Vorthak methods of sensing their environment and working with natural systems. But they also learned together about concepts that were new to both species. Ideas about justice that went beyond simple revenge. Methods of resolving conflicts that satisfied everyone involved rather than just the strongest. Ways of making decisions that considered the needs of the entire community. "We're creating something new," Minjae explained to a group of rescued cubs one day. "We're not human, and we're not traditional Vorthak. We're something else. Something that takes the best from both ways of living." The cubs listened carefully, their large yellow eyes focused on his words. These young Vorthak would grow up never knowing the hatred and fear that had defined their species for thousands of years. Instead, they would know cooperation, compassion, and the joy of building rather than destroying. However, the galaxy beyond their community remained dangerous. Reports continued to arrive about Vorthak supremacy fleets destroying entire star systems. The traditional Vorthak war machine showed no signs of slowing down, and the Galactic Council seemed powerless to stop them. "Sometimes I wonder if we're just building a beautiful dream that will be crushed the moment the supremacy finds us," Su-Yung said during one of their evening planning meetings. "Maybe," Do-hyun replied. "But every day we exist proves that change is possible. Every rescued cub who grows up choosing love over violence is a victory against everything the supremacy represents." Nari, now the community's primary healer and counselor, had been working with the few adult Vorthak who had chosen to join them. "The adults who come to us all tell similar stories. They're tired of the emptiness of constant fighting. They want to find meaning beyond just survival and dominance." "That gives me hope," Hanul said. "If some adult Vorthak can change, maybe others can too. Maybe what we're building here could spread throughout the galaxy." As the years passed, the community continued to grow and evolve. They developed new technologies, new ways of living together, and new solutions to problems that had seemed impossible. Most importantly, they proved every day that the future didn't have to repeat the violent patterns of the past. Young Vorthak, who had been raised with human values, were now becoming adults themselves, and they carried forward the lessons they had learned. They were strong enough to defend their community against any threat, but wise enough to seek peaceful solutions whenever possible. The galaxy still feared the name Vorthak and still saw them as unstoppable monsters. But in one corner of space, a new kind of Vorthak was growing up. one that would soon be ready to show the galaxy that even the most feared predators could choose to become protectors. The evolution was complete. Now it was time to share it with the rest of the galaxy, whether the galaxy was ready or not. The massive Vorthak war fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Kepler 442c like a storm of metal and death. 50 ships strong, bristling with weapons that could crack planets, they came expecting to find a simple human mining facility ripe for conquest and a few wild cubs who had claimed easy hunting territory. War Alpha, Thexmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the scanner readings with growing confusion. The planet's surface showed massive energy signatures and construction that shouldn't exist. Where he expected to find a small human outpost, the scanners revealed a sprawling city that seemed to blend human and Vorthak architecture. "Impossible," muttered his second-in-command. "The reports said only 50 humans lived on this world." "The reports are 13 years old," Thexmore replied grimly. "Much has changed since I was last here." He remembered his previous visit. The 3 young Vorthak, who had fought like nothing he had ever seen, using coordination and tactics that should not exist in their species. He had reported the incident to the Supremacy, but his superiors had dismissed it as an isolated anomaly. Now, looking at the readings from the planet below, Thexmore began to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. "Send landing parties to 6 locations around the main settlement," he ordered. "But be careful. These are not normal humans we're dealing with." On the planet's surface, Do-hyun stood in the command center of what was now called New Haven. A city of 30,000 beings, both human and Vorthak, living in harmony that defied galactic understanding. Around him, his adopted family and community leaders prepared for what they all knew would be the greatest test of everything they had built. Fleet composition shows standard supremacy pattern, Minjae reported from his enhanced sensor station. 50 ships, approximately 3,000 warriors. War Alpha Thexmore is commanding from the flagship Bone Crusher. "The same one who was here before," Nari observed. "He knows about us. He won't underestimate us this time." Hanoel, now in his 70s but still sharp and determined, looked at his 3 adopted children who had grown into leaders of their unique civilization. "Are you ready for this?" "As ready as we can be," Do-hyun replied. "We've spent 13 years preparing, not just the 3 of us, but our entire community." The preparation had been extensive. New Haven wasn't just a city, it was a fortress designed around the principle that protection was stronger than destruction. Every building could serve as a defensive position. Every street was designed to channel attackers into disadvantageous positions. Every citizen, human and Vorthak alike, knew their role in defending their home. But more importantly, they had allies now that the Supremacy would never expect. "Incoming transmission from orbit," Soo-young announced. "Thexmore wants to speak with the settlement leaders." "Put him through," Do-hyun said. The War Alpha's scarred face appeared on the main screen, his yellow eyes glowing with predatory intent. When he saw Do-hyun, his expression shifted to something that might have been respect, mixed with disgust. "I remember you, young one. You and your siblings, who fight like humans, taught you. I see you have built something here." "We have built a home," Do-hyun replied calmly. "A place where different species can live together in peace." Thexmore's laugh was harsh and mocking. "Peace is weakness. You have corrupted our cubs with human softness. Today, the Supremacy reclaims what belongs to us and cleanses this world of your diseased thinking." "And what of the humans under our protection?" Nari asked, stepping into view of the camera. "Will you murder innocent beings to satisfy your hatred?" "Humans are prey," Thexmore stated flatly. "Nothing more. Your protection means nothing to us." Minjae joined his siblings on screen. "Then you force us to defend our family. But Thexmore, know this. We are not the same 3 cubs you faced 13 years ago. We have grown. We have learned. And we are not alone." The War Alpha's eyes narrowed. You think your human allies will help you? Their weapons are toys compared to Vorthak claws. Our allies might surprise you, Do-hyun said quietly. The transmission ended, and across New Haven, the defenders took their positions. But this wasn't the desperate last stand that Thexmore expected to find. As his landing parties descended toward the planet, they encountered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. The first landing party touched down near the city's eastern district and immediately came under attack. Not from humans with their weak weapons, but from adult Vorthak who fought with the same impossible coordination that Thexmore remembered from years ago. "Report!" he demanded over the communication system. "Sir, we're facing Vorthak resistance, but they fight like they're protecting something instead of claiming territory." More reports flooded in from other landing sites. Every party faced the same impossibility: adult Vorthak, clearly mature members of their species, fighting defensively alongside humans, using tactics that prioritized group survival over individual glory, showing mercy to defeated enemies instead of killing them. "How many?" Thexmore asked his sensor officer. "Approximately 200 adult Vorthak fighting against us, sir, plus an unknown number of adolescents and what appear to be human Vorthak mixed units." Thexmore felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. In all his years of conquest, he had never faced members of his own species who chose to fight against the supremacy. On the planet's surface, the battle raged through the streets of New Haven, but it was unlike any battle in Vorthak history. The defenders fought not to claim territory or prove individual strength, but to protect a way of life that had taken decades to build. Kyung-ho Nam coordinated mixed units of humans and Vorthak who covered each other's weaknesses and amplified each other's strengths. Human technology guided Vorthak natural abilities. Vorthak strength protected human intelligence and creativity. "Sector 7 needs reinforcement," he reported to Do-hyun over the communication network. "Sending Team 12, Do-hyun replied. Team 12 consisted of 6 adult Vorthak and 4 humans who had trained together for years. They moved through the city like a single organism, each member knowing exactly what the others would do. But the most shocking moment came when one of the supremacy warriors, a young fighter named Krexval, found himself surrounded by 3 defenders after his unit was defeated. Instead of killing him, they offered him medical attention and asked if he wanted to surrender. "Why?" he asked in confusion, blood flowing from his wounds. "Why show mercy to an enemy?" "Because," said one of the defenders, a Vorthak named Seungmin, who had been rescued as a cub 8 years ago, "you're not our enemy. You're our lost brother who hasn't learned yet that there's a better way to live." This conversation, and dozens like it across the battlefield, began to have an effect that no one had anticipated. Some of the younger supremacy warriors started to hesitate. They had never encountered Vorthak who fought to protect others rather than to dominate them. "Sir," reported one of Thexmore's landing party commanders, "we're having unusual difficulties. Some of our younger warriors are reluctant to continue fighting. They say the enemy Vorthak are trying to communicate with them instead of just killing them." Thexmore realized that this battle was about more than just territory or resources. It was about the future of their entire species. The Vorthak of New Haven weren't just defending their city, they were proving that everything the supremacy believed about their nature was wrong. In desperation, he ordered his ships to begin orbital bombardment of the city. If he couldn't defeat these corrupted Vorthak in ground combat, he would destroy them from space. But as the bombardment began, something extraordinary happened. The entire city activated a defensive system that shouldn't have been possible, a combination of human shield technology and Vorthak bioengineering that created an energy barrier capable of deflecting the orbital strikes. "Impossible!" Thexmore roared. "How do they have technology like that?" "Sir," his sensor officer said quietly, I'm detecting massive energy sources all across the planet. This isn't just a city, it's an entire civilization that we never knew existed. As if to confirm his words, new ships appeared on the edge of the star system. Not human ships or traditional Vorthak vessels, but something new. Craft that blended the technologies of both species, crewed by mixed teams of humans and Vorthak working together. This is Admiral Sang-Hwan Lim of the Terran Defense Force. Came a transmission from the lead ship. And Task Leader Dong-Hyun of the New Haven Defense Fleet. War Alpha Thexmore, you are ordered to cease your attack on this protected world. Thexmore stared at the screen in disbelief. A human admiral and a Vorthak commander, working together as equals. It violated everything he had ever believed about the natural order of the galaxy. This is impossible, he whispered. No, came Do-Hyun's voice over the communication channel. This is evolution. This is what happens when we choose to build instead of destroy. When we choose love instead of fear. Looking at his fleet, surrounded by ships crewed by humans and Vorthak working together, facing a planet where his own species had chosen protection over predation, Thexmore finally understood what he was really fighting. He wasn't just facing a military force. He was facing the future, a future where everything the supremacy represented had become obsolete. 3 years had passed since the Battle of New Haven, and the galaxy was transforming in ways that no one could have imagined. The sight that had once struck terror into every civilized world, massive Vorthak warriors moving through space stations, and planetary settlements, now brought hope instead of fear. Do-Hyun stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic station orbiting Centauri Prime, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Human vessels flew alongside craft of Vorthak design, but these were not the predatory war fleets of old. These ships carried families, teachers, healers, and builders, Vorthak who had chosen the path of the Guardians. "The morning report, sir," said Captain Jisoo Park, a human officer who served as his aide. She handed him a data tablet with updates from across known space. 17 more supremacy colonies have declared independence and requested Guardian assistance. The old war fleets are fragmenting faster than anyone predicted. Do-Hyun smiled as he read the reports. Each one told a similar story. Young Vorthak warriors encountering Guardians and learning that there was an alternative to the endless cycle of conquest and violence. Some chose to stay and fight for the old ways, but many others laid down their weapons and asked to learn about this new path. "Any word from the Andromeda sector?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Nari's medical mission has successfully established 3 rehabilitation centers. She reports that former supremacy warriors are adapting well to Guardian training. Many of them say they had never experienced peace before and didn't know it was possible. In another part of the galaxy, Nari was indeed working miracles that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. Her rehabilitation centers weren't prisons or punishment facilities. They were schools where former predators learned to become protectors. The hardest part, she explained to a group of visiting diplomats, is helping them understand that strength doesn't always mean dominance. Many of these warriors have spent their entire lives believing that showing mercy is weakness. She led the group through one of the training areas, where massive Vorthak worked alongside human instructors. A former supremacy captain named Thecnor was carefully tending to injured animals, his deadly claws now used for healing rather than killing. "I used to destroy everything I touched," Thecnor told the visitors, his voice quiet with wonder. "Guardian, Nari taught me that these same hands could save lives instead of taking them. It was the first time in my life that I felt truly strong." The transformation wasn't limited to individual Vorthak. Entire star systems that had lived in terror of supremacy raids now found themselves protected by Guardian fleets. Former prey worlds became safe havens where different species could live and work together. Minjae had become the chief architect of this new cooperation, developing technologies that allowed different species to share knowledge and resources in ways that benefited everyone. His biomechanical innovations had revolutionized everything from agriculture to medicine to space travel. The key insight, he explained to the Galactic Technology Council, was understanding that competition and cooperation aren't opposites. They're different tools for different situations. Traditional Vorthak society only knew competition. Human society sometimes focused too much on cooperation and not enough on individual excellence. But when you combine the best of both approaches, he gestured to a holographic display showing productivity statistics from Guardian-protected worlds. Every metric showed dramatic improvements. Food production, technological advancement, quality of life indicators, even artistic and cultural development. We're not trying to make all species the same, Minje continued. We're trying to help each species become the best version of itself while working together toward common goals. The success of the Guardian movement had not gone unnoticed by the Galactic Council. What had started as a small report about unusual Vorthak behavior had grown into the most significant political and social transformation in galactic history. Admiral Seungwon Lim of the Terran Defense Force had become one of the most vocal advocates for Guardian integration into galactic society. 3 years ago, I was prepared to fight a war against the most dangerous predators in known space, he told the Council Assembly. Today, I consider many of those same beings to be my closest allies and friends. The change in human perspectives had been dramatic. Where once the very word Vorthak had meant certain death, now human colonies actively sought Guardian protection. Mixed crews of humans and Vorthak had become common on trading vessels, exploration ships, and diplomatic missions. But perhaps the most significant change was happening in the younger generation. Human and Vorthak children who grew up together in Guardian communities saw no barriers between species. They played together, learned together, and solved problems together in ways that amazed their parents. The children are our real success, Hanol said during a celebration marking the 5th anniversary of the Guardian movement. He was in his 80s now, his hair white and his movements slower, but his eyes still held the same kindness that had led him to save 3 abandoned cubs decades ago. The celebration was being held in New Haven, which had grown from a small mining facility into one of the most important diplomatic centers in the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had come to honor the man who had started it all by choosing compassion over fear. I used to think my greatest achievement was my scientific research, Hanol continued, looking out at the crowd of humans and Vorthak who filled the Great Hall. But watching Do-Yun, Minje, and Nari grow into the leaders they've become, seeing the galaxy learn that love is stronger than hate, this is what I'll be remembered for. Do-Yun, now recognized as the primary leader of the Guardian movement, stood to address the crowd. His massive frame still commanded attention, but where once Vorthak size had meant threat, now it represented protection and strength used for good. 15 years ago, Appa found 3 abandoned cubs and made a choice that changed the galaxy, he said, his deep voice carrying clearly through the hall. He chose to see potential instead of threat. He chose to offer love instead of fear. Today, thousands of former supremacy warriors have made the same choice. The crowd included many of those former warriors, now wearing the simple robes of Guardian teachers and healers instead of battle armor. Among them was War Alpha Thexmore, who had surrendered his fleet after watching his own warriors choose the Guardian path. I spent my life believing that strength meant making others fear you, Thexmore said when called upon to speak. Guardian Do-Yun taught me that real strength means making others feel safe. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for the harm I caused when I didn't understand this truth. The transformation wasn't complete, and it wasn't universal. Parts of the old supremacy still fought against the Guardian movement, and some human worlds remained suspicious of any Vorthak, regardless of their intentions. But the momentum was clear. The galaxy was choosing cooperation over domination. Minji presented his latest project to the celebration gathering, a new type of ship designed for exploration rather than conquest. These vessels, crewed by mixed teams from dozens of species, would venture beyond the galaxy's edge to search for new worlds and new forms of life. "We're not going out there to conquer or claim territory," he explained. "We're going to learn, to discover, and to offer friendship to whatever we might find. The age of predators is ending. The age of guardians has begun." Nari had her own announcement. The establishment of the Guardian Academy, a center of learning, where young beings from any species could study the principles of protection, cooperation, and peaceful strength. "Every student will learn not just how to defend others, but how to help others defend themselves," she said. "We're not building an empire. We're building a community that spans the stars." As the celebration continued into the night, Hanul found himself standing on a balcony overlooking New Haven. The city stretched out below him, a marvel of cooperative architecture where buildings designed for humans stood next to structures built for Vorthak, all connected by graceful bridges and walkways that allowed both species to move comfortably through their shared space. In the distance, he could see guardian ships landing and taking off, carrying teachers and healers to worlds across the galaxy. Each ship represented another step toward the future he had dreamed of but never expected to see. "Do you ever regret it?" Do-Yun asked, joining him on the balcony. "Taking in 3 dangerous aliens instead of walking away?" Hanul smiled and looked up at his adopted son, who towered over him, but still treated him with the same love and respect he had shown as a young cub. "Never," he said simply. "Not for a single moment. You 3 didn't just change your own lives. You changed what it means to be alive in this galaxy. You proved that anyone can choose to be better than what others expect them to be." Above them, the stars shone down on a galaxy that was finally learning to choose love over fear, cooperation over conquest, and hope over despair. The age of predators was ending, not through violence or force, but through the simple recognition that there was a better way to live. And at the center of it all were 3 former cubs who had learned from a kind human scientist that the greatest strength was not the power to destroy, but the courage to protect and love.